Do your Dungeons & Dragons players get distracted by every little thing in your world?
Ooh, look, a butterfly. Come here, little buddy.
Do you find it hard to keep them focused on the main adventure?
Let's start moving from house to house, looting them all.
Trust me, you're not alone. And today I'm going to go over a few things that Dungeon Masters can do to keep their players on track. Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and I've been a Dungeon Master since high school. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can implement at your table. Alright, let's jump right in. Ways that you can keep your players focused on the adventure at hand and not get distracted. Number 1. Have a strong plot hook. You need to grab their attention. A man presses an envelope into your hands and says, "Keep this safe, please." And then he collapses dead at your feet. And once you've grabbed their attention, tell them what's in it for them. Your adventure hook needs to offer something to the players that will compel them, that will make them want to actually do it. You could appeal to their personal goals, their backstory, their morals, or just plain greed, or maybe all of them. The players' characters need a reason to do the adventure. And then you need to clearly describe what the players need to do. And that leads us to make the main quest obvious. For instance, the NPC quest giver tells them exactly what they need to do and where they need to do it. When the players know exactly what they need to do and where they need to do it, their mission is obvious to them. And the reason you want to make it very, very clear to your players what the mission is that if you make the mission vague, your players could spend hours of game time wandering around the world trying to figure out what it is exactly they're supposed to do and where are we supposed to go to do it anyway. Oh hey, and real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon for helping me choose the topic of this video. Helping to decide the direction of this channel is one of the perks that my patrons enjoy. There's a link down in the description if you want to check out my Patreon page. Number 3, don't introduce distractions yourself. Recently, I was the player in a game where we were all going off the main quest. We were totally not doing what the DM kind of expected us to do, and we all knew it. So see, we're in this like underground dwarven city, and we're supposed to go down into like the sewer levels and find this like fast travel system. But the Dungeon Master describes this city as being full of crates. And so curiosity kicks in and we start opening some of these crates. And lo and behold, they're full of treasure. And the Dungeon Master pulls out the DMG and begins rolling on the treasure tables. As you can well imagine, we continue opening crate after crate after crate to get more loot. I mean, we're getting gold and stuff like that, but also magic items. So guess what? We're just gonna keep on going through that entire city, looting everything at that point. I mean, that was our plan. The DM obviously caught on at a certain point and decided that that just wasn't gonna work. And so then we had hordes of orcs coming down upon us. However, previously he had described a central castle in this city where there was a magical forge located. So magical forge is probably worth something, possibly can make magical weapons. And so guess what? We start heading there. We go down into the sewers and start beelining for the castle. And the DM tries to warn us off by describing this super bad, evil, powerful guy guarding the castle. We didn't really care. I mean, we had treasure, we had dollar signs in our eyes at that point. And so we arrive at the very base of the castle in the sewers and we begin traveling upward through the castle in an attempt to get this magical anvil. Now, I'll be the first one to admit that while we're doing all of this, I knew full well that we were going way off track and we were not doing what the DM had kind of expected us to do. And I do feel just a little bit bad that we frustrated our dungeon master like that. But you got to admit, that course of events was in large part due to him. I mean, we weren't the ones creating distractions. We weren't creating crates full of loot. We didn't create this magical anvil in the castle. Our dungeon master did that. You see, the dungeon master himself was creating the distractions for his players. All right, so how can you avoid creating distractions for your players? You need to be careful with your descriptions. Anything that is expensive or interesting or has a specific name has the potential to cause a distraction. What you describe in detail has a chance that your players will think that it's very, very important, and they might go on long in-game tangents trying to get more information and find out why did the DM specifically mention the name of the author of that book. If you fill your world with too many details, then it's hard for your players to distinguish what's really important and what's not. It might seem counterintuitive, but sometimes it is good to be vague. Because your players are going to make the assumption that if you go into extreme detail on something, that it's important enough for them to spend some time investigating it. This doesn't mean that you should ignore all background and flavor though. Just cut down on some of the superfluous details. And I should probably try not to use big words that I can't pronounce. And if you see distractions beginning to set in, the key is to starve the beast. Every time you give them an interesting fact, you fuel their desire to investigate more. So don't do that. Don't give them anything. Don't give them those details. It's not you not being creative. It's you moving the game along. Number 4, use detail to focus the player's attention where you want it to go. And on the flip side of the previous point, when you do want your players to notice something that is important, give lots of detail. By adjusting how interesting and detailed something is, you can adjust the direction that your player's attention will go. So if your players are getting off track, be vague on the things that are not important and give lots of details on the things that are. Number 5, explain the type of game you're running at session 0. Is your game a sandbox where you encourage your players to go anywhere and do anything? Or do you prepare a specific adventure and then expect your players to go there and run it? Or maybe a sort of mix between the two. Neither of them is better than the other, despite what some very vocal sandboxers will tell you. Anyway, the point is, make sure your players know the type of game that you run. And the reason is that if they know that there is one adventure that they should be playing, then they will seek it out and try to make sure that they're on the right one. And if they know that you're running a sandbox and anything and everything goes, well then they'll feel less encumbered by having to do the one thing that they think you're anticipating them to do. If you'd like to learn more practical Dungeon Master advice that you can use at your games to make them even better, then smash that playlist right there. And until next time, stop distracting your players.